This episode is brought to you by the Public Domain Shop, a clothing brand inspired by classical literature and film. Use the code Wolff to get 10% off your next sweatshirt purchase. Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, Austin Butler, Micheal Ward, Luke Grimes, among many others in a half-political satire, half-Western thriller from Ari Aster about the pandemic. Did not sound like a good idea the first time I heard it. Never mind, it was only 5 years ago that we were literally yelling from 6 feet away or online to each other about fucking everything. Which just makes the blood in my leg boil thinking about it. Does that happen to anyone else? And Hollywood, rather than remain neutral, took one side of the pandemic debate over the other, and because of that, I honestly thought this movie was going to do the same. But then early reviews came out from Cannes that Good or Bad actually mentioned Ari Aster satirized both the right and the left's perspective of the pandemic and really just about anything he can in this movie. You know, what satire is supposed to. Which gave me enough hope to give this movie a chance, and boy am I glad to say Eddington's greatest strength is that it is fair and balanced. For real this time. The actual plot of Eddington takes place in May 2020, New Mexico, where the first half of the film is a political satire where, due to his hatred for small-town mayor Pedro Pascal, Sheriff Joaquin Phoenix decides to run against him for office. The second half is the fucked up, unpredictable fallout where everyone loses their goddamn minds and guns start blazing. Now, whether they're conservative or liberal, every character in Eddington is treated as equally redeeming yet hypocritical. They're all given backstories and personal traits that explain how and why they've been mistreated for their beliefs alone, but the more time they spend yelling at each other in the culture war, staying in their echo chambers instead of trying to find common ground, the more they lose their humanity. To the point where, depending on the scene, everyone switches from a hero, anti-hero to a villain at the turn of a dime. Joaquin Phoenix, for instance, is a right-winger who's against masking, and when people question him about it, especially being the sheriff, his pathetic, incoherent mumbling makes it clear he would never enforce this stuff regardless of the efficacy. His own family members listen to far-right conspiracy theories about 1956 in Wuhan or child trafficking, one of them even behind his back because even they know their beliefs sound paranoid compared to his, mainly because he doesn't deny anything, he just disagrees. The fact that Ari Aster could tell the difference between a conservative and a far-right or all-right extremist is mind-boggling to me. I didn't think anyone in Hollywood was capable of understanding that difference, but when he sees someone kicked out of a grocery store because they can't breathe in a mask, which made me realize I don't think exemptions were even a thing yet, he actually buys the groceries for that guy free of charge and even points out he can't breathe in one of them because he's asthmatic. It's clear whether you agree with him or not that he believes in respecting people's freedom of choice, but at the same time, he's technically breaking the laws that he's supposed to enforce. Again, I'm legitimately surprised that anyone in Hollywood, let alone Ari Aster, who mainly makes art house horror films, is that fair and objective. Even more shocking was that he had the balls to call out SJWs, which I would argue are half his audience, considering the amount of activists I've known in real life who are bigger A24 fans than I am. But let me be clear, he never mocks them for being against racism or police brutality. Phoenix and one or two of his deputies, whether they lost control or meant to begin with, do abuse their authority, and the script calls them out when they do. It's more how social justice warriors combat racism, by constantly suggesting white people are incapable of understanding how bad it is when half the protesters are white people who genuinely feel bad about it, yet still give rally speeches about why they are the wrong people to be giving rally speeches. I spent half an hour writing notes for this, trying to make this sound normal. I feel like a fucking idiot just reciting this Robin DiAngelo bullshit, let alone pointing out that it didn't make sense then, it doesn't make sense now. He also rightfully points out that liberals and conservatives, when they're that passionate about their political beliefs, hold this "if you're not 100% with us, you're 100% against us" mentality that either pressures people into going along with their beliefs just out of need for respect and attention. There's one subplot where a guy becomes more and more of a BLM activist just to score with another girl, or turns them away because what they thought were their friends have become so closed-minded. And let me tell you, the fact that there were so many people laughing at the virtue signaling jokes, especially a family dinner where the one kid trying to score with the girl recites this stuff in front of his family, in a dining room where there are a ton of guns and he's talking about dismantling whiteness, the reaction had everyone in the theater, myself included, howling, and I gotta be honest, that gave me a little more faith in humanity. And since it's the 2020s, there's plenty of social media commentary about the difference between seeing edited events on the internet versus what actually happened in real life, where someone sees a video, text message, or picture that's taken completely out of context in ways I definitely wasn't expecting, but still had the message of just because it looks that way on camera doesn't mean that's actually what happens. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Just don't assume that an Instagram reel has all the answers. My only problem with the commentary is I wish there were more characters who were apolitical, centrist, or just altogether trying to find common ground and build bridges as opposed to everyone else who wastes a hell of a lot more time burning them. I know Aster's movies are always pessimistic. This is supposed to be a cautionary tale about why the culture war has gone too far, but we need to be reminded what the world used to look like, how there used to be more room for conversation so that we can return to it. And I do think showing at least two characters in the background having a great conversation in between all the other bullshit would have been, at the very least, a comforting running gag. They already do a routine where someone's in the background being a bigger threat to society, but everyone else is too busy arguing with each other, so I felt like you could have swapped one with the other. Alright, so political aspect aside, how's the filmmaking itself? Well, the character depth and pacing are really messy even for Ari Aster, but it's the talent in front of and behind the camera that keeps it engaging. I wouldn't call this Ari Aster's best looking film, and if you're expecting a Breaking Bad or Dark Winds type of neo-western where there's a lot of flashy camera angles, long stare downs before people draw their weapons, you don't really get that here, and that was kind of underwhelming. It's still a western in scope, but the over-the-shoulder shots, longer takes of characters walking from place to place as things get more heated, the ultra-wides of the town and the desert landscapes that, because Ari Aster spent most of his life in New Mexico, knows how to make look good. The standoffs are arguments about the pandemic, social media, and social justice, so the Western style is mainly there to emphasize how we treated petty arguments in such a grand, lawless way. But by the halfway mark, once everyone snapped their cap, this turns into a fucked up blend of No Country for Old Men and Falling Down, where we get the violent set pieces you expect from Ari Aster. Now, granted, the shootouts in the trailer are mainly in the third act, but they're done without music to make each gunshot more surprising. The editing slowly builds anticipation as everyone draws their weapons, and the actual carnage on display, no one just gets shot or stabbed. Aster comes up with many clever excuses to dismember or even blow up people, which was worth the wait, worth the price of admission alone, especially the climactic shootout between Joaquin Phoenix and Antifa. I'm not fucking kidding. And between this and Bo, I just want Joaquin Phoenix to be in every Ari Aster film because he does a great job at portraying easily the most fleshed out character in the film. Whatever you think of his politics, his overall actions, for Phoenix's tightly wound expressions and body language, you feel the amount of pressure and anxiety he's put through by the townspeople, the mayor, social media, his own friends and family, over every minute decision of his, or just flat out takes him out of context. You understand why he's at a breaking point, and at certain times acknowledge that he is trying to do what he thinks is the right thing, without forgetting that by running for mayor partly to show up his personal rival, he put himself in this position and loses himself the more competitive he becomes. Pedro Pascal being in this movie, let alone his performance, I'm kinda conflicted on, because on the one hand, his sappy bullshit campaign video was one of the biggest laughs I had, and the fact he's willing to play a Democrat who endorses policies public that he rarely follows in his own life, even lecturing his own son to follow the rules just to protect his own image, that's certainly ballsy on his part. But one, if you've seen Pascal's social media posts, you know he has a bullying the bullies mentality that, regardless of whether or not you agree with him, is a blatantly hypocritical thing to do. It does more harm than good, and weirdly conflicts with the moral of this film, so already I have no idea why he's in this. And two, for being Phoenix's personal and professional rival, he's actually not in the movie as much as you'd think. And that's really the big problem with Eddington. While there's enough screen time for you to remember each character, everyone that's not Joaquin Phoenix doesn't get enough screen time to really show who they are as people. Most of their backstories are told through exposition, so you don't care for them as much as you should. And then there's Deirdre O'Connell, who's in this way too much as the alt-right mother-in-law. I think the closest I came to legit caring for a side character was Micheal Ward as one of the deputies, because his activist friends who think they know him believe him to be in denial or a race traitor because he won't protest with them, so they turn their backs on him. And when he disagrees with another deputy over one sentence, it makes everyone suspicious of him. He's the one character in this whom everyone turns their back on. And we actually see that happen for ourselves. And that has so much potential to talk about people who don't choose one side over the other. That's barely even glanced upon. Well, that's more than I can say for Luke Grimes, Austin Butler, and especially Emma Stone, who are so poorly utilized. Butler and Stone in particular feel more like chess pieces than characters. Austin Butler seems like a loud far-right conspiracy theorist online, but in reality is soft-spoken, believes his own bullshit, and is just a fucking weirdo who never should have tripped on acid, which that alone should be funny, but I have no idea why he's even in this. He's only in a few scenes, his opinions on the pandemic barely factor into the plot, and I just didn't laugh at his material. And Emma Stone is Joaquin Phoenix's wife. That's not even the problem, really. I'll admit, I wouldn't have liked her performance regardless. There is a reason why she plays this character in such a bland yet emotional way, kind of like she's still in a Yorgos Lanthimos film. I just don't think that style of acting fit with the tone of this movie. But she has a troubled past that is basically the reason Joaquin Phoenix has it out for Pedro Pascal in the first place. On paper, she's one of, if not the most important characters. But she's barely in it long enough to even establish a connection or chemistry with Phoenix, so once he starts using her troubled past for political leverage, there's really no weight to it. Whether it's in the writing or editing phase, Ari Aster really needs to practice trimming things down because, as you can tell from how long this review is, this movie's overstuffed with too many characters and only Joaquin Phoenix really comes out on top. It's weird that my favorite movie of his is 3 hours long, and I wouldn't change anything about that, but even with everything I've complained about that there's not enough this and too much that, even though this is a half hour shorter than Beau Was Afraid, it did not need to be 2.5 hours. Maybe if there was less of the kid becoming an activist just to score with that girl, because that does eat into a lot of the runtime, and even though I love the satire of that subplot, it's the themes, not the character, that's interesting. And more time on those who were involved in the main conflict, that might have worked, but there is way too much time wasted on Phoenix or other people in events that just don't matter, even in especially the ending where there are 5 or 6 times where I swear, it looked like it was about to end, and it probably should have been there. And don't get me wrong, the ending itself is really good. There's a brilliant, careful what you wish for resolution there, but Ari Aster just stretches each of these endings out longer than Return of the King. All in all, I may be more lenient towards Eddington just because it is evenly satirical, but we need more movies that are critical of everyone to point out that both sides of the political aisle, or no sides at all, have equal strengths and weaknesses. That's how we find common ground. That's how we end this culture war shit. And honestly, if the commentary wasn't as smart as it was, I'd flat out tell you. You may not believe me based on everything else I've said, but that's really all I can add to that effect. Thankfully, Eddington has just enough clever satire, great performances, and brutal Western violence to make this worth the watch. If you're an Ari Aster fan, definitely check it out, but keep in mind, you're not gonna like everything about it, you're not gonna like every opinion in it, mainly because you're not supposed to. And with that, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Eddington. Be sure to like and subscribe, check me out on Patreon and buy me a coffee, and I'll see you all in the next review. Take care.